Welcome back to One Foot In with Ohana and Winn. It's our first Thursday episode, and it's a special Thursday episode because this week is Prove It Week.
Prove It Week indeed, because 2 weeks have gone by, okay? Teams have had their chance to play their games. Some teams have had kind of some tough openers, like LSU played USC. They kind of got to figure stuff out a little bit, but a lot of teams have kind of got to skate by. And some of them haven't skate by. They haven't done it too well. So this week we're going to talk a bit about some of those teams. But first off, we're going to talk about what we think is the biggest game of this weekend, and that is Kansas State,
Arizona.
Arizona.
And if you remember from last episode, I have Kansas State going to the playoff. You have Arizona going to the playoff.
I sure do.
So this is kind of a playoff matchup for us right here. And I think we get right into it. I think maybe we start with one of the weirder notes of this matchup.
I didn't know this until today, and I
Yeah.
feel like most people watching probably won't know this.
They probably won't know
this game's
this.
Friday at 8,
Yeah.
and it's two Big 12 teams
Yep.
that are not playing a Big 12 game. Can you
Not a Big
explain
12.
that?
So it's a non-conference game, so this game will not count in either team's conference record. And essentially, the reason for that is it was scheduled as a home and home before Arizona joined the Big 12, and yeah, it's just not going to be a conference game. So
Yeah, back when they were in the Pac-12, this game was on their record and on their schedule for this year. Then they joined the Big 12, and they're like,
Yeah.
well, we agreed that it wasn't going to be. So then they're just going to keep it that
they're
way.
going to keep it that way.
But ironically, it's like one of the biggest games of like the Big 12, especially
Oh,
early
100%.
on.
I think personally, we might just want to rip this as a show conference game. We were counting it as a conference game.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
that's how
down.
it should be.
That's how it should be.
So
And it'll matter. It'll matter.
will
for the
matter at
playoff.
the end, yeah.
Even though it's not a conference game, it has a lot of
Yeah.
implications.
it
So
will matter eventually.
let's start it off with you.
Okay.
Talk me through this game. You have Kansas State in the playoffs.
I do have Kansas State in the playoff, and if you remember, maybe not, I did mention in my predictions on Tuesday's episode that Kansas State goes to the playoffs, but I think they lose possibly to Arizona. I think I might have even said that they will lose to Arizona. However, I have come off that prediction of them losing, and I do think Kansas State wins this game. Now let me explain. Okay, first off, they're coming off a nail biter here against Tulane last week. Really a game that was super exciting and super fun, and for me as a Tulane truther as well, you know,
What is a Tulane truther?
I have Tulane making the play. Tulane is my Group of 5 team.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I am a Tulane truther, so it was an interesting matchup for me. I did expect Kansas State to go ahead and win that game, which they did. I think this game ends up being just an offensive shootout. I don't think this is going to be a defensive, clinic by anyone, and it's really going to be led by two offenses that are going to go explosive. So I'll start off with my side with Kansas State. I think they lean on the run game in this one, at least until they can really open up Avery Johnson. And we'll see what he does, sophomore quarterback Avery Johnson. We'll see what he does throughout the game. But I think they lean on DJ Giddens and Colorado transfer Dylan Edwards, who, both had good games last week. And Arizona, they're ranked 110th in the nation in tackling. Only 2 weeks, but generally when you can't tackle in football, you're generally not able to get guys on the ground, as tackling is the act of getting those guys on the ground. So I think they get the run game going. I think Johnson's part of that run game. And then eventually explosive plays open up. They'll get some explosive plays on the ground as well. I think they go pretty aerial assault by the end of it, and I do think they win in a blowout. I'll get to my score prediction after you go, though.
You think they win in a blowout?
No, not a blowout. I think they win in a shootout,
Okay,
not
I
a
was gonna
blowout.
say.
No.
So, I think Arizona's going to win this game. Now,
So
it's
you do.
at Kansas State, which I don't love, but at the same time, I don't really think it's going to impact Arizona that much because they're just such an explosive team, and I feel like nothing quiets a crowd more than just an explosive team that's just throwing the ball over your head, that's just finding ways to get it done. If you're not aware of one of the best quarterback-receiver duos in the nation, I'll let you know. It's my boy T-Mac
It's your
from
boy T-Mac.
Hawaii, my boy Fafita. They're amazing, and T-Mac is incredible. Listen to this stat line against New Mexico.
Wow.
10 receptions,
Yeah.
304 yards,
Yeah.
4 touchdowns, longest 78-yard touchdown. That's insane. That's insane. And then you have a dual threat quarterback like Fafita. I think that's just a problem. And I think Arizona's offense is really good. They've shown it. My problem, and Colorado experiences this too, is okay, you have some fantastic playmakers. Do you have enough? Do you have a well-rounded enough team to be able to knock down a team like Kansas State, which last year was a good team. This year is also a good team.
Should be.
And they gave up 39 points to New Mexico.
Yeah.
Arizona did.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you just can't do that. Again, that was the first game. You're trying to figure out kinks. You're playing a team that you probably haven't played before in New Mexico. Like, I get it, but you can't do that here. And I don't think they'll do that here. I think they'll clean it up. I think they'll figure it out. But I with you think that this is going to be a fast-paced, high-scoring, fun game to watch that I do think Arizona's going to pull out purely because I just think their playmakers are just better than Kansas State's playmakers. I think that Fafita is better than Johnson, and I think T-Mac is better than the K-State receivers that they have, even though there are more K-State receivers. Yeah. So if he stays healthy throughout that game, I like Arizona in that one. That's what I'm going with.
I mean, your Arizona points are pretty much the one I had for Arizona as well. Fafita to McMillan to T-Mac. I think that connection does resemble, not exactly what we saw against New Mexico because that was just insane.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't think we're going to see an offensive performance from Arizona like the one against Northern Arizona.
Yeah.
Where it's a 22-10 ball game. T-Mac is, 2 for 11, whatever. I mean...
That was weird.
Yeah,
that was weird.
It's weird. But I don't expect that, obviously. I do think they're explosive, and I do think they have, or Kansas State is there to be exploited. They allowed more than 10 yards per drop back against Tulane, a 14% explosive play rate. Mm-hmm. And Tulane exploited that. I think Arizona, talent-wise, specifically Fafita to T-Mac, I think that they'll definitely exploit that. And I don't expect Kansas State's defense to do much of anything.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think it's a 4-point game. I've got Kansas State 38, Arizona 34.
Yeah.
So I think it's 30-30, high scoring, fast paced shootout. But I do have Kansas State coming out with a win.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't pin an exact number on this. I could totally see this being like an overtime type game as well, where it's 35-35 going in OT, 42-42 going in OT. The thing about Kansas State is I feel like if they turn the ball over twice in that game, that Arizona's just going to capitalize on it right then and there, and they're just going to put points up on the board that are just going to be hard to come back. So I don't think this game's going to go to overtime. I could see it happening. I think, like you, it's going to be a high-volume, fast-paced game. I'm going to go Arizona 42, and I'm going to go Kansas State 35. My fear is Kansas State is just going to put every secondary guy that they've got. They're going to play safety and a corner, basically double manning T-Mac on that game. And then we're just going to see... I mean, this is the prove-it game for Arizona, in my opinion.
Okay.
And because if they drop this game, they've got to really... They have an uphill battle if they're going to get back into the playoffs.
Same for K-State. I mean, I know I'm high on Tulane, but they definitely should have won that game more. Or not even won the game by more, but the game beats should have played out differently. Yeah. It shouldn't have been a situation where you're trailing by 10 points early. So I think K-State has to prove themselves as well in this one. And like you said, if they lose this, same as Arizona, then you got to go basically run the table if you have any expectation of making the playoffs at all. And that's always tough. So, I think this is a huge game for both of them. It's a huge game, obviously not for conference standings apparently, or not for conference record, but it's a huge game within the Big 12. And I expect it to be a really good one. I think this is going to be a great game to have tomorrow at 8 p.m. too. Sort of standalone outside of all the Saturday action.
Do you know who Arizona plays after Kansas State?
Arizona play after?
They play Utah. They play Utah. So that's going to be interesting.
My Big 12 champion.
My Big 12 champion.
Our Big 12 champion.
All right. We've talked enough about that. Let's get right into The rundown. What do we got first?
All right, well, first up, we're going to discuss some Oregon State action, which, in the spirit of Prove It Week, is a prove it game for Oregon. First 2 weeks, there's no way around it. They have not looked like the team I think most people, maybe everyone, expected them to look like this season. Just weird, really weird first 2 weeks. So now they get to go up against Oregon State, a rivalry game. I'll give my thoughts, but first I want to hear what you think this game ends up looking like.
Oregon. We both have Oregon having a good season.
Yeah.
I have Ohio State winning the conference. You have Oregon winning the conference. But the first 2 weeks, yes, it's your first 2 weeks. It's a new team. It's a new quarterback. It's blah, 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 blah. You got to play better.
Yeah.
Because Oregon State is a good team. Oregon State is a good team that has a good offense. The thing about Oregon State is that it's a whole new staff. You got a whole new overhaul. Everybody basically, head coach, quarterback, went to Michigan State. And it's just hard in modern college football to just revamp a roster in a year, and then especially play a team like Oregon, who's had success recently, who's got a more solidified head coach as in Dan Lanning, who, even though Gabriel's new to this team, is a 5th year, even 6th year senior at this point. So we talked about this on Tuesday that Oregon has not looked great, but we didn't sound the alarm, and I'm still not sounding the alarm. I still think they're going to win this game. I think this is going to be a bounce-back week for Gabriel. I think that the connection to Evan Stewart, they're going to continue to harp on that. I think that the offense is going to look better. I think they're going to clean up some of the slop on offense as well. The thing that they've got to get going is the defense. Mm-hmm. When they played Boise State, now credit to Ashton Jeanty, right? Ashton's his first name. Jeanty's he's an incredible running back.
Yeah.
He's a Heisman favorite for a reason. I think he's averaging somewhere near 10 yards per carry at this point in the season. But, he was slicing them up. Slicing them up. And he just kept, the thing about that is that just changes the pace of the game if you're Oregon. And that's tough. That showed a lot of weak points. But I do think that this is going to be a bounce-back week. I do. I think this is the week where they watch their film, they looked over the last 2 weeks, they're getting more comfortable. Dylan Gabriel's engaged now. Shout out Dylan Gabriel. But I think this is their bounce-back week. What is the spread on this game? I want to say it's
I think last time I looked, it was just about 16.5. But, yeah, check what that is. I'm right there with you on what I think happens in this game. I think, and it is 16.5, so I think Oregon covers that. I think it'll be pretty easy cover for them. I think they win big, and the whole team looks better. I don't think it's as sloppy. I think the O-line plays at a higher level, or they don't look as bad as they have.
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel to Evan Stewart, like you mentioned, I think that connection is going to look really good. I think they'll get the run game going. I just think overall, the offense and the defense, the whole team, will just look more like a real contender looks like.
They'll be more composed.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think that's kind of how the direction of the game will be. I don't think it'll ever be, at any point of the game, a situation where we think that maybe Oregon really is not that good. I think they come right out the gate.
I do too.
Pretty much swinging, and from there I think it'll be smooth sailing the rest of their season. Even though I have them losing to Ohio State in their regular season matchup, obviously I have them winning the conference, but I still think it'll be, even in that game, they'll look like the Oregon that we expect. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a great game for Oregon, and I think they do get right and prove themselves. So.
Let's get into a new segment for us. Thursday shows, we told you, are a bit different, obviously, because it's not Thursday shows. Friday shows are going to look a bit different. We tape these on Thursdays. Don't hate me. Mm-hmm. Friday shows are going to look a bit different than Tuesday shows, naturally. But one thing that we're going to start doing is a lock of the week.
100%.
Now, we're not just going to say lock of the week, and then if we're wrong, just
get
away. Oh, whoops.
Can't do that.
We're going to do a punishment.
Yeah.
Now, we still haven't figured out what these punishments are. We're open to ideas.
We are open to ideas.
But we talked about this earlier. We have 2 tiers for the way this is going to go.
Yeah.
So let's say that let's say Georgia and Florida are playing this weekend, and the spread is 21 points. So if I pick Georgia to cover the spread, and they don't cover but they win, then I get the tier 1 punishment. Now, if Florida, the underdog, wins that game in like in general, that I'm getting a tier 2 punishment, and we're gonna have to figure out what that is. I might have to walk around on a campus wearing some crazy gear or something wild like that. And then on the flip side, with the underdogs.
Yeah, so if you take an underdog, there won't be a tier 2 punishment, I guess, because you're already picking the underdog. So really, you only have tier 1 punishment, which is just your underdog doesn't cover the spread. And yeah, that'll pretty much be it. So
let's hear yours first, Eitan. What's your lock of the week this week?
I'm going with an underdog to start it off, but I'm taking them to win outright. So I believe in this team, not just to cover the 13.5, but to take the game. And the team, you know what? Let me say what team's on the losing side of this one. The team that's favored by 13.5. The team that is sitting on your chest right now, Oklahoma, loses to Tulane. Tulane as a 13.5-point underdog.
The Sooners.
And listen, yeah, I believe in Tulane. I've talked about that already earlier, and I have them making the playoff. But I think this is really more about my distrust, my lack of faith in Oklahoma, at least this iteration of Oklahoma that we've seen. And again, prove it week. This is the prove it of all prove it's for Oklahoma. Jackson Arnold, he's got to prove it to me, because as of right now, he hasn't played well. He certainly hasn't played on the level of some of the other young quarterbacks we've seen. The Lagways in his one game, the Nikos in so far and to be expected.
Against Tulane, he averaged 5.4 yards per throw and went 19 for 32. So yes, you're right.
Yeah.
So you think you have Tulane winning this game?
I have Tulane winning outright, which I didn't originally in my predictions, or I was unsure about. I said Tulane, one of Tulane's 2 losses would be a combination, which Oklahoma was part of, but I am going to take them to win this game.
So we were going to talk about sneaky underdog in our next part, and I was going to say Oklahoma and Tulane, but we're talking about it right now.
Okay, there we go.
And you're probably wondering, why am I wearing an OU shirt?
Why are you wearing an OU shirt?
I'm wearing an OU shirt because I think they're getting hated on. I think they're getting hated on a little too much.
Maybe.
And I want to show my pride
to
the Sooner Nation. Horns down. Even though I haven't winning
at all.
Here's the thing. You can read my notes right here.
Oh, yeah.
Tulane versus Oklahoma scares the hell out of me.
As it should. So, it's my lock of the week, and my lock of the week is as good as anything.
So I don't think Oklahoma will cover. 13.5 is crazy.
Yeah.
For a team, and especially in Jackson Arnold, that hasn't proven anything, like they're supposed to cover 13.5, and they scored 16 against Houston last week. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Nope.
And especially, like, Tulane doesn't look bad. But I don't think Oklahoma's going to lose this game.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to lose this game. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be tough. They could go down at some point in this game too. But it's in Norman. They have an outlook for the season. They're playing Tennessee next week too. They need this game, and I think they know they need this game. And I think that they're hearing some of that talk of them not being legit. I mean, they've kind of been counted out on this season. I have them going 7-5 this season. I mean, they have a really tough schedule. But regardless of that, I think that Venables and that team are going to hunker down this week. I think they're going to look back at that Houston game, find those mistakes, and I think they're going to beat Tulane. I don't know if they're going to do it clean. I don't. I mean, again, like I said, it scares the hell out of me. And, I mean, like, Tulane is a good team, too. Mensa, their quarterback, is great. I mean, he threw for 342 against Kansas State. I just think that Oklahoma will win. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but I think they're going to win.
Okay. I mean, I guess that'll be a big game for us.
Yeah.
Wow.
That'll be one that we'll talk about on Tuesday.
That will be
sure.
one. Yeah.
That one of us is going to get a stern talking to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're both on the 13.5 covered.
Yeah.
By Tulane. So, I just think the win outright is.
If Oklahoma proves us completely wrong and just blows them out, then I'm throwing you in a Danny Stutzman shirt, and you're wearing that all day long. All day long.
All day long.
All day long. All day long.
I guess, yeah, that is my lock of the week. Yep, fair enough.
There you go. There's your punishment. All right, let's get to the next one. Sneaky underdog / upset of the week. I mean, you just talked about Tulane.
Yeah.
That scares me too.
What's your lock of the week, though?
Oh, yeah, I'm stupid. Yeah. Sorry, back it up.
Yeah,
rewind.
Back it up. Whoa.
My lock of the week.
Without a punishment. Yeah. That's crazy.
My lock of the week is a team that you're high on, that I'm high on, that I think is going to cover.
Okay.
I got Ole Miss going
love it.
into Wake Forest.
Love it.
There's a spread that is 22.5. 22.5 is a big spread. And they're going to do it. They're going to do it. I know they're going to do it. I know that they run the ball well. They throw the ball well. They defend well. It's Wake Forest. I mean, I think it's lower because it's at Wake Forest. But that's my lock of the week. I think Ole Miss is securing that down easy.
Oh, I'm with you there. And listen, I'm already starting the Jackson Dart Heisman chirps. I'm going to be the leader of the Heisman case for Jackson Dart after this weekend.
All right. Well, honestly, we already talked about our kind of sneaky underdog of the week. I think we're going to get right into the Prove It section.
Let's do it.
Let's get in the Prove It section, and then we got a news segment coming up right after that, which we're both very excited about. All right. Prove It week.
Yeah. There's a few teams I think really have to prove it, and I guess prove it here, I'm allowing teams with a loss that already kind of didn't prove it and kind of don't believe in it all. I'm allowing them to enter my prove it week standings. So I'm going to rip off a team that had, I don't think there's any debate on this one, the worst loss of the week last weekend. That's Notre Dame.
Yeah.
If you go out and not even lose to Purdue, if you just don't perform well,
Purdue is sneaky about that too, man.
Yeah, they are sneaky about that. They do.
They've knocked
they
off
will
some
get
teams,
you.
man.
Yeah, but listen, Notre Dame already got knocked off last week. So if you're not going in there with everything you've got, I don't know what to tell you. You're just not a serious program at that point.
Yeah.
And you're already halfway toward not being eligible to prove it to me. So you better win this game. My second prove it team this week is going to be a team that I know I'm high on. I have making the playoff, but I do think needs a prove it game after a real stinker last week. And even though they won and the final score was very deceiving, that's Alabama. Do not look at that Alabama USF 42-16 final score. That's fake. As fake
it's
as
one of the
score
craziest scorelines I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then when you watch the game, you're like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
They just ran away in the fourth quarter with just stupidity. But
yeah, it makes no sense. So I think that Alabama, Notre Dame, those are my two super prove-its this week.
Yeah, I got Alabama written in my notes here too. They look terrible against USF. They don't look like the Alabama that we know.
No.
Like, they just don't. Now, again, they're not the Alabama we know. It's a new staff. It's a new coach. I mean, but still, like, you're the number 4 team in the country. You have not played like it. I mean, USF were literally they were doing Tebow-esque quarterback runs. They were taking a direct snap and just running it right through their linebackers and going through them. I mean, this is USF we're talking about. Yes, their quarterback is big, but still, they did it time and time and time again. And they were competitive basically that whole game. And Alabama, like, this is why I don't have them making the playoff. Like, they're not even in my playoff. It's just because, like, first-year head coach, new staff, new team, new culture. Like, yes, Saban still has his godly hand over it.
Yeah.
But I was afraid that they weren't going to prove it. Now, saying that, I think this will be a bounce-back week. I think they'll beat Wisconsin. And I think they'll cover. They've got Tyler Van Dyke, Wisconsin does, who's a good quarterback. But still, like, it'll be a matchup of team styles with the SEC in the Big Ten as well. But I think Alabama's going to win. I think they're going to bounce back. But this is their prove-it week. Because after this, like, I got no faith in you if you don't prove it to me this week.
Oh, 100%. And, I mean, I think they do prove it this week. And, again, I have them making the playoffs, so I definitely don't expect them to lose this game against Wisconsin. So, I expect them to be good. And, I mean, you got Georgia in 2 weeks as your next game.
Figure it out.
So, you got to figure it out quick. But I think,
My other team is LSU.
Okay.
They go and they play at South Carolina.
Yeah.
And South Carolina looked good last week against Kentucky.
Yeah.
But I'm concerned that Kentucky is just bad.
They could just be terrible.
But, like, LSU, like, I mean, like, I'm not a Brian Kelly fan. As the season goes on, you'll hear me talk more about that. I mean, yeah, sure, he's played all right there. But, like, that USC game, like, they looked fine, but they did not look great. And then the way that they lost that game at the end was ridiculous. Like, that just shows me that, like, they just don't know what they're doing yet, and they've got to prove it. Because, again, you're an SEC team. You've got to figure it out. This is your game. Dude, at South Carolina too. Like South Carolina could steal this game from LSU,
100%.
and if they do, LSU season's done. They're done.
It's over at that
They've
point.
lost USC. They've lost the other SC.
Yeah.
And now they're done. Now they're done.
100%. Their season will be completely over at that point. Yeah, they can't afford to lose that game. I mean, they probably should have won the USC game if, for being honest.
Yeah.
And I do like USC. I have them going to the playoff. But that's a new quarterback in there, basically a new quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Are we heading into our final segment here?
Let's rip it. We've got a fun new segment that we'll probably be pulling out every Friday show.
Yep.
It's called Complaint Courtroom. So how it works is we both, we'll have complaints pop up, maybe just through watching the games, things that have been sitting on our chests, on our hearts.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything for a little while. And this is our opportunity to get it out there. But, we can't just complain to the air and to nobody without any disagreement or maybe validity.
Yeah.
So, one person will do the complaining. The other gets to judge whether that complaint is valid or not.
And if it's not valid, then they get to beat the other. No, I'm playing. But
no beatings.
So what are we gonna do? A minute on the clock? Let's do a minute on the clock.
Minute on the clock.
Who goes first? I'm gonna sit across from you like this.
I can go I can complain first if you want. I'm
complain
excited.
To me, Eitan.
All right, let me complain.
Here, I'll put you on the clock.
You'll put me on the clock.
All right, you've got 1 minute. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, now my complaint is about something that generally is a good thing, and don't take this the wrong way. I'm complaining about loyalty, specifically coaches who are overly loyal to quarterbacks that they shouldn't be loyal to.
Oh.
When you have an opportunity to make the switch, and yes, I am sort of, kind of, definitely referring to Billy Napier, not moving on from Graham Mertz for DJ Lagway, who very clearly, anyone who watches football with 2 eyes and knows what they're seeing, even those of you who don't know what you're seeing, you don't need to know. Lagway has just better talent. He's just a better quarterback than Graham Mertz. And I know Graham Mertz is a quarterback, and I know the only reason he wasn't playing was because of a concussion, and maybe it's morally wrong to not play him, but I'm sorry, you play the guy. Got 10 seconds. Tyrod Taylor got his lungs punctured and got replaced by Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert never gave that job back. I think the same thing should happen here.
And your time is up.
Lagway.
Now this is an interesting complaint. Okay. One that I was not thinking you were going to bring to me, and one that I'm going to disagree with.
Really?
One that I'm going to disagree with. Now, DJ Lagway is phenomenal. But Graham Mertz has given his heart to that program.
He has, yeah.
He's like 87 now. No, he's what, 22? But he got a concussion against Miami. He did not look great against Miami. But he got a concussion. That doesn't mean that you just give the reins to a now true freshman. Look, if Lagway is a junior and is at this point, then maybe. So I'm gonna go invalid on this one. I'm gonna go invalid on this one. However, if Mertz goes out there and stinks for 1 drive or 2 drive, done. Done. But I support Napier starting Mertz, even though I love Lagway and I'm not a huge Mertz guy. I'm gonna support this decision. I think loyalty is important, especially in modern college football.
Okay.
All right.
That point's valid.
All right.
Let me put you on the clock. 1 minute starting right now.
I watched Iowa and Iowa State play.
Okay. Well, Iowa State win.
CBS now calls those games. Mm-hmm. Do you know what broke my heart, Eitan?
What broke your heart?
Broke my heart. It broke my heart.
I need to hear this one.
Gary Danielson. Gary Danielson. And oh my God. And Brad Nessler. Used to do SEC. They used to do that big game of the week.
They did.
When Alabama's at LSU, those big games, Georgia, Alabama, those are the ones that they're supposed to be doing, and they're talking about Iowa and Iowa State. And it drives me crazy. It drove me nuts. I'm sitting there like watching Gary Daniels. He's amazing. He's calling the plays out. I'm thinking about when I was a kid watching great SEC football, and it hurts me. It hurts me so bad. And look, no disrespect to the ESPN people that now have SEC, but it's not the same. It's not the same, and I don't want to watch them talk about a 21-20 game against Iowa State and Iowa. They deserve more. They deserve more, and that's all my case.
That is your time, and I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't think you needed any more time. I think your point was correct.
It breaks my heart.
15 seconds in, because I grew up on those SEC on CBS games. I remember. I mean, listen. I was, there you go. And listen, I was not a child during this game, but 2019 Bama LSU on CBS, game of the year that was being hyped up as game of the year, ended up being maybe game of the century. That's a game that I'll never forget. The talent on that field, that's a CBS game. That's gotta be a CBS game. No disrespect to Iowa State.
No, disrespect to those teams.
You know what? Disrespect to those teams. Actually, forget
Iowa
about it.
sucks.
Forget about it.
I feel so bad for those poor guys.
For Iowa?
No, for Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler. Dude.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine being, the voice for some of the great games in college football in the sport, and then you got to go Iowa State, which I guess, listen, it ended up being a game-winning field goal, so I guess they got a close one, but it's definitely not the same. I mean, I'm sure they miss Joe Burrow and Tua going at it, but
it's not the same. All right. That's all we got for you.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in so much. So much. Hope you guys watch all these games this weekend. We will be back with you on Tuesday.
Recapping all the action.
It.
Seeing.
Interested to see. And you'll see some punishments come out maybe, perhaps. Maybe.
Definitely not for me, because my lock is.
We'll see.
As good as gold.
Shout out Nico.
Shout out Nico.
Oh. How do you say it? We have a bet here. How do you say it?
We did have a bet. And you know what, Nico Iamaliava?
I think he got it.
I don't lose my bets.
I think he got it.
I don't lose my bets.
Nico Iamaliava. Nico the Freako. That's what we're going to refer to him as, because
Nico, go out, ball out this weekend, and you've got Freako. That's your nickname. We don't even have to use your last name. Just go ball out.
They play Oklahoma next weekend, by the way.
Oh, Freako's
That's a
banger.
That's a banger.
Oh,
all right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
See you.